Hey guys, it's Brigitte with Sandy Seed Company, and in this video I'm going to be talking about when you need to be planting sweet pea flowers. Now these are the beautiful aromatic flowers that you use for bouquets and to enjoy in the garden, not sweet peas, the pods that you eat. Very different. Now there is one thing that in my 10, almost 15 years of growing here in zone 9 and 10, I see people making the same mistake over and over and over again. I don't want you making that mistake, so tune in and watch this whole video so that I can help you have a really incredible sweet pea harvest this spring. We're gonna cover everything you need to know, from how to plant the seeds, when to plant the seeds, key pro tips that you need throughout the season, everything to make your garden blooming and full of the most amazing sweet pea scent. Okay, so I'm here in the garden. It's a beautiful day to be planting sweet peas. It's cool, it's kind of cloudy. I've got a bunch of different sweet pea varieties here. And I want to address the number one question that we get all the time with sweet peas. It's to soak or not to soak the seeds. That is the question. Everybody has a different opinion about it, and I'm just going to give you the rundown of both sides of the argument, and you can make your own decision. I personally do not soak the seeds. That's because oftentimes people who soak the seeds, gardeners will do it, they soak it for too long. I've said it a million times in all of my videos that when you hold a seed in your hand, it's a living, respiring organism. Now what happens if you take a living, respiring organism and you put it in water for 24 hours? There's no oxygen. It's going to damage the seeds. And honestly, if you have really good soil and it's light and it's fluffy, it's pliable, and it's been irrigated before you go to plant, you don't need to soak the seeds. So that's kind of my argument on why you could or could not do it. If you really want to speed up germination, which is why people soak seeds, because it helps soften the seed coat and break the seeds open, just do it during the time that you're prepping your bed. What I like to do is get a mason jar, set it right where I'm gonna plant it so I don't forget, fill it with water, put my seeds in, do my prepping, and then plant them directly after. Don't put them in a bowl on your sink on Friday, planning on planting on Sunday. You're gonna damage the seeds and they're actually going to basically suffocate and drown, and you'll get poor germination. Okay, so now let's get into the actual mechanics of how we're gonna plant these. So, as with any direct sown seed, the time and energy you put into bed prep in the beginning is directly correlated to your success on the back end. Like actually how many seeds germinate, how even the germination is. We've gone in and we've ripped everything out, and we have aerated the soil, so we've cracked the soil open. You should be able to put your hands in it, okay? And I've accomplished this because we have really good soil, which has taken years, but also because I came in and I weeded, and I actually took a pitchfork and broke open the soil so that moisture can get down into the soil. That's really important. Because sweet pea seeds are fairly big, I can be a little more rushed in my bed prep than when you're doing things like carrots or really small seed. And even though there's nothing growing here right now, I have been running the irrigation. That is so, so, so important. When soil gets really dry, it becomes hydrophobic, meaning that it kind of repels, or it's hard for it to take on moisture. I don't want that to happen during this process. So I'll run the irrigation or hand water even though I don't have any crops in the ground. And that is two key things. It's hydrating the soil and keeping the microbes alive. And it's actually germinating some weed seeds here, which then I can come through with a rake or, just with my hand and break them up at the thread state when they're really, really small. All right, now, big question, how deep do you plant the seeds and how far apart do you plant them? Well, lucky for you, it's on the back of every seed pack, but I'm just gonna let you know. More or less, you wanna plant them about 6 inches apart. How deep you plant them is very important. The general rule is twice as big as the size of the seed. And most of the time I will tell growers to actually place the seed on top of the soil and cover it with soil. You can definitely do that with these guys. And what's nice is if you do it that way, what's gonna happen is you can actually see where you plant them. I'm not a big fan of this action right here where you go, boop, because guess what? I have no idea how deep that is. And then you cover it up with more soil and then maybe it's too deep. So I like to actually just place it on top of the soil so I know how deep it is, and then the soil that I place on top is the best sifted soil that I can find in my garden. And I'll show you how to do that. But first, let's get these planted. So next, another reason why I do it on top is because I'm gonna water them in. I cannot stress enough that one of the number one things people do wrong when they're direct seeding any seed, vegetable or flower, is they don't keep the soil moist long enough and the seed doesn't have contact with moisture. It actually needs contact with moisture to germinate. If I put a seed here and not here, this is gonna take a lot longer to germinate or not germinate at all. By watering it in, I can guarantee that there's a full area that is moist where the seeds are going to germinate. In zone 9 and 10, moisture is the most important and limiting factor in gardening, especially in the fall, because it's hot and it's dry, and we haven't gotten rain in like, I don't know, 6 months, in a really long time. So run your irrigation regularly, and if you're gonna hand water, you might have to hand water several times a day to get the seeds to germinate. Now let's water these in. So it's important that you don't take your hose and like put it on the strongest jet and blow these seeds sky high. If you have a mist setting, that's a really nice way to do it. This hose doesn't have a mist setting, so I'm gonna use something light, and I'm really gonna water well. You cannot rush this step. If you think you're gonna water super quickly and be done, and especially if you don't have irrigation, you're gonna be sorely disappointed. Your seeds are not gonna germinate well, they're gonna germinate spotty, or they'll start to germinate under the soil, then they'll dry out and never come to the surface, and then you'll be wondering why it didn't work. Now, honestly, this video could be like 10 minutes long if you actually watch me spend all the time it's gonna take to water. But for reference, you can see that I actually have almost a gully of water in here. I'm gonna let that soak in while I sift my soil, and then I'm gonna water again. So the reason why you sift is big pieces like this, those are going to stop germination. Even big clods of dirt like this. If that's on top of a sweet pea seed, it may not make it through. So we're gonna sift to make a nice, fine mixture that's gonna be our seed topper. And you'll notice that I'm just using soil right out of the garden. If you have bagged product, you can use that. You can also use compost, that's fine. That's probably enough. Now look at this. Ah, look at that, that's beautiful. I'm gonna water again. Again, we're not rushing this part of the process. Now you might be saying, okay, well, if I'm covering up the seeds, how do I know how much is going on top? You just need to eyeball it, because this is finely sifted, really nice soil. I don't have to be as worried if I put too much soil on top of the seed, it's still gonna break through because there's no large particles that are going to inhibit it. And you'll also notice when I water that this is going to thin out a little bit. So now I'm gonna water again. Do you get the idea? Lots of water. I'm gonna let that soak through, and then I'll do it again. Maybe even a fourth time. I'm really gonna make sure these are completely moist all the way through so that I get the best germination possible. All right, so let's talk about support. So sweet pea flowers, especially if you want to get long stems that are good for cutting, for arrangements, they need some type of support. This is a very simple recycled cattle panel arch, nothing fancy. You can see there are beans on it previously. Every year we grow something different. I like growing them up this because I get a massive wall of flowers that's very easy to come in and prune. And it looks amazing. So put some type of support up, whether it's Hortonova netting, cattle panels, anything that the little tendrils can catch on and grow up. You're gonna have a much better harvest. You will also have sweet peas that have less disease because the airflow can get all the way around them, so you have less powdery mildew, and just happier plants in general. Now remember at the beginning of the video I said there's this one thing that you cannot forget when planting sweet peas in zone 9 and 10? Well, drum roll, here it is. In zone 9 and 10, you need to plant your sweet pea seeds in the fall. In fact, the best time to do it is my birthday month, October, one of the best months in San Diego, because they need a long vegetative period if you want massive blooms in April, May, and June. Sweet pea flowers can't handle a lot of heat, so you want them blooming in the early, cooler part of the spring, not June or July, where they'll basically fry. You can start them as early as September. October's really the best, and then you can succession plant them through November, December, even into January. But much later than January, your plants are not going to be big enough before the heat of summer hits to give you a lot of bloom. A couple of pro tips that are really going to make a big difference is do not overhead water your sweet pea flowers. Water at the soil level. That's going to help you prevent or manage diseases like powdery mildew, especially if you're on the coast, downy mildew, and other issues that you can potentially have with your flowers. When they start to bloom, harvest heavily and often. The more you harvest, the more blooms you're gonna get, which makes for amazing arrangements, and then you can share that beautiful, antique, old-fashioned scent with all of your friends and neighbors. Now, if you're a gardener in zone 9 and 10, I really hope you subscribe to our channel because this content is specifically for you. I want to take the mystery out of gardening for you and help you, so make sure you like and subscribe, and even better, sign up for our newsletter where I send out seasonal helpful information to keep your garden growing. And we want to know, what are your favorite sweet pea varieties? Post a comment on this video and let me know, what are the things that you love? How are you planting to get even earlier harvest? Or what are some of your top secrets in making your sweet pea harvest the best ever? All right, guys, now remember, please do not forget this one key tip. Sweet pea seeds in zone 9 and 10 in areas that don't get any frost or very light frost, which is most of zone 9 and 10, you need to plant your sweet pea seeds in the fall. They actually require a very long vegetative period to grow to be big, healthy plants to give you massive amount of blooms. Don't wait until the spring when you start thinking about sweet pea blooms or seeing them in people's gardens to plant them. They need to be planted now, and the wait is totally worth it, we promise. Now, out of all the varieties we've trialed over the years, here are some of our favorites. Mammoth Mix, as the name explains, they're huge, beautiful plants that have a lot of blooms on them. High scent, this variety is chosen specifically for its scent. So it's that really amazing, antique-y smelling aroma that was like in your grandma's perfume that you love, and you can smell it wafting through the whole garden. As the name suggests, Royal Family Mix, beautiful colors. This is an heirloom variety that has been chosen specifically for the colors. They look amazing. And then Knee High Mix. So Knee High is a very short, almost dwarf variety of sweet peas. So if you don't have a 10-foot tall trellis, you just want some in the garden, almost that you can grow without a trellis, this is a variety to try.